Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Apologies if you're watching this late, very late. It is a very late show, I can only apologise for that. But let's get on with it. Let's start off. Advanced talks, official bid for Eduardo Camavinga. This is coming in from Fabrizio Romano, and I also want to talk about Rafael Varan, because I've had a few messages this morning about people saying, "Oh, it's going to fall through. Apparently, it's going to fall through," and I'm like, just be careful. Just be very careful. Remember, this is a news show on the United Stand, and we will cover the news. And if there is something negative to bring you about the Rafael Varan story, then we'll definitely bring it to you. But just be very careful that it's in some people's interest to sway you from one way to another. From one day, Varan's on to Varan's off. Now, maybe we will be talking about Varan being off tomorrow if it comes from a credible source. But right here, right now, as we spoke about last night, Varan to Manchester United, very positive. Look, I'm ready to go 90% club on it. That's what we had on the thumbnail last night. I don't do that lightly. The information I have around Varan, and as I spoke about last night, is very positive at this moment. Am I worried? Am I worried about him staying at Real Madrid or being convinced to stay at Real Madrid? Well, that is the risk here, but I'm not massively worried about it. I think as of now, Varan is looking to come to Manchester United. And there's an update just coming in from Marca that's the case, which we'll get onto in a minute. But let's start off with the main news, because this is quite a big statement from Fabrizio Romano. Obviously, he's been very, we had him on the show on Monday. He's very busy. He's always on lots of shows, isn't he? But what he did say yesterday is that we will see if Manchester United will make an official bid to Rennes in the coming days, which I think they will do. They're very serious about signing him. So that's from Fabrizio Romano, who is, considered to be one of the best transfer sources in world football at the moment. And he's saying that he expects an official bid from Manchester United around Eduardo Camavinga. There's also updates from The Athletic, who are saying that the protracted talks with Rennes and Camavinga could be a problem for Manchester United, because it could open up the door for Madrid and PSG, and there is a little bit of a concern about that. But it's a long interest from Manchester United, so long that even a couple of years ago United were looking at Camavinga but decided to go for Hannibal instead. So it's a long interest that Manchester United have had. And also as well, and I think a few of you have already picked up on this, Paul Pogba could actually be very key to Camavinga coming to Manchester United, but not in the way we think. I think some people are thinking, if Pogba goes, we'll get Camavinga. If Pogba stays, we won't get Camavinga. That's not the case. United want Camavinga and they want to keep Pogba. That is true. However, there's a different angle to that. That is, if PSG get Pogba, they won't go for Camavinga. If they can't get Pogba, PSG will go for Camavinga. So it's looking unlikely that United will end up in a situation where they've got Paul Pogba at United and Camavinga at United. And not because United don't want that. I think United do want that. But I think PSG want Pogba, and if they don't get Pogba, they'll go for Camavinga. So, it looks unlikely that we'll get both. United must do everything possible to keep Pogba. Would be a massive loss, says Victorim. Varan deal is worrying, no progress yet. United must complete this deal. On Varan, look, let me just finish up on Camavinga and we'll come back to Varan. PSG have got Neymar to sign a new contract, signed Wijnaldum, Hakimi, Ramos, and they could get Donnarumma. It hurts to say, but PSG looks like an attractive option for Pogba, says Lissy. Hey, it is an attractive option. The only unattractive thing about PSG is their league is basically no better than the Championship. In fact, some people would argue the Championship is a better league. So that's the problem he's got there. PSG have got a fantastic side, but you're basically on holiday for 8 months of the year. You only play competitive games for about a month. And that, I'm not disrespecting the fact that Lille won that league, and they did, but it's not a very competitive league. Would it not be better business to do a swap with Pogba, end the Pogba saga, and reinvest the funds into a CDM? This would be good business, says Edward Walters. Yeah, swap deals are very difficult to do, Edward, though, and I don't think Pogba, Manchester United are not in a position to swap Paul Pogba when Paul Pogba's not even told them what he's looking to do yet. So I think that's the problem that they've got there. On Eduardo Camavinga, Romano is saying he's expecting a bid in the next few days. Doesn't mean that bid will be accepted. Athletic are saying that Rennes are looking for about 40 million euros, not 30 million euros, looking for about 40 million euros, which is still about 30 to 32 million quid, which is ridiculously cheap, and I think we can afford that. But you've got to be careful about what's happening with PSG and Real Madrid. And there has always been a feeling at United that maybe Real Madrid is where Camavinga will end up. But we'll see. see. We'll see. I think the Camavinga thing is interesting. I would be down at 30% on that. I think there's a 3 out of 10 chance that that's going to happen. I don't believe we will get Camavinga and Varan, and I want to talk about some alternatives in a moment for that. But the Camavinga news keeps progressing. Advanced talks. I think there will be a bid going in soon. And what you've got to do, just before I bring the latest on Varan as well, what you've got to do with United is realise what I've said many a time, and what other people who are far more credible than me have said many times as well, is that we have agreed personal terms with Varan and Sancho and Camavinga before they've officially signed. And it doesn't mean that Camavinga and Varan will officially sign, Sancho will. But you can't officially agree personal terms until you've officially signed the player. But you can agree personal terms. It's like me, right? You know what? If I get a phone call from Sky Sports this morning and they say, look, you're brilliant. You're much better than that Mark Wright, the only way is Essex Pratt. We want you in front of the camera from now on. And we're going to pay you whatever you want. And I go, yeah, you know what? That sounds good to me. But you've got to deal with the United Stand community and convince them first. You know, I've agreed to go, and I would never do this, by the way. I'm just using a bad example. I've spoken to Sky privately and said, this is what it's going to take for me to do it. But you've got to convince the United Stand community. Which probably won't be hard. They'll probably say piss off and take him. But you know what I mean. I haven't officially signed for Sky, but I have spoken to them and said they're the terms I would like, and Sky have said yeah, we'll give you them. And I'm like, now you've got to go and negotiate with the community to see if you can agree a deal. And this is what happens in transfers. That yeah, we will have spoken to Varan and his people, and they will have said, yeah, I'll do that, but now you've got to talk to Madrid, and the same with Camavinga. So these personal term conversations are not a problem. It's about dealing with the clubs now. Give McFred to PSG and have Pogvinga, says Punit, and Camavinga is a great signing and what we need, but I'm worried that Ollie won't get rid of McFred. We could see another Donny situation, says NMCC. Well, you know, as Ricky, Joe and Beth were saying last night, there is no way that there's probably no way he's not going to use those lads next season, McFred. Interesting. It's just very interesting update in the last few minutes. I've just read this on the United Journal Twitter account, which is via Manchester Evening News, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer admires Dominic Calvert-Lewin's old-fashioned approach, but the player would be difficult to prize from Everton. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a massive mistake. We shouldn't be going anywhere near Calvert-Lewin. I'm an admirer of Calvert-Lewin, but only if you want to pay £30 million for him. He's definitely not on a level of Lukaku or a Haaland or a Harry Kane, and he never will be. You know, he's not that level of striker. He's probably Danny Ings. That's probably the sort of level Calvert-Lewin is. Not a similar player, but that sort of level. And the bad thing about Everton is if you knock on the door for Calvert-Lewin, they're going to say we want 80 million quid. So United shouldn't be admiring Calvert-Lewin at all. In fact, it's a little bit worrying if that's true that Solskjaer is an admirer of Calvert-Lewin, because I don't think he's a top four striker, and I don't think he ever will be, because I think Everton will just keep hold of him. Duncan Castle said his sources say that Varane would prefer to stay at Real over coming to United, but Madrid can't afford his wage demands, says Dan. And morning, Mark, would you do Herrera plus 40 million for Pogba? He will give us all, and also a better passer than McFred, can be used as a bench player, says Amit. I mean, it's not the worst idea in the world if Pogba says he's adamant that he's going, but, you know, we'll see. I like Calvert-Lewin, by the way. I just don't think he's of the level that we need. But I want to bring you this update from Marca, because there's a lot of people talking about the Varan deal. So, as I said, this morning there seemed to be a little bit of negativity around Manchester United getting Varan, which I've not heard. I've not heard anything that we should not be worried about this deal. In fact, that Duncan Castles thing is the first thing I've heard from somebody that may be having a semblance of relevancy. But this is from Marca, who are obviously very close to Real Madrid. They are a Real Madrid outlet, basically, when it comes to sport. Manchester United's interest has seen Real Madrid give the green light to Rafael Varane to negotiate his departure so that his sale can help the club make cash. Real Madrid value him at 60 million euros, which is about 50 million pounds, which I think is a little bit too expensive for Manchester United. But the situation with Varane at the moment is that he's on holiday. His Instagram post is that he's on holiday. Now, some people I think what's happening here, and I said this yesterday morning, take that story from Marca. What does it say? It says Real Madrid have given the green light for Rafael Varane to leave to go to Manchester United. That's from a Real Madrid outlet saying that. There's a lot of Spanish reports saying the same thing. A lot of Spanish reports are saying that Varane is going to leave Real Madrid. And another one has come out and said it this morning. Now, if you are a United fan and you've got Spanish outlets close to Madrid saying that he's leaving, then you've got every reason to be excited. And I don't think there's any reason to start dropping down how excited you are just because a couple of British journalists are saying, well, you know what, it might not happen. It might not happen. He'd prefer to stay in Madrid. And if that story that I've just heard there is true, that Real Madrid, that Rafael Varane would rather stay at Real Madrid than come to Manchester United, but they won't give him his wages. Well, I don't actually have a huge issue with that, because do you think Manchester United would have the opportunity? And look, football's a business. You know, the Glazers have treated us like a bloody business for 16 years. But players are, if I'm being blunt, business. Some would say mercenary, but certainly business. I don't think Rafael Varane woke up in mid-June and went, you know what? I really fancy Old Trafford. I really fancy Manchester United. I think he had 1 year left on his contract. And he said to Real Madrid, I want to stay here, but I want massive money to do it. And they went, no, we can't afford it. We need to rebuild. And he's gone, well, I'll leave then. And now he wants to leave. I think that's what's happened. I think everyone wants the fairy tale, don't they? They want Rafael Varane to have woken up and gone, it's my dream to go and play with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. And I don't think it is. Some would say it's nobody's dream. It's a nightmare. But, you know, as somebody who wants us to do well and somebody who likes Ole, I mean, I'm not saying it to disrespect Ollie. I just don't think Rafael Varane woke up and thought he wants to come to United. I think he woke up and realised that he wasn't going to get the offer for a contract that he wanted at Real Madrid, and probably thought, you know what, having thought about it, I've been here for a long time, I've won everything, I can earn more money and get a new challenge elsewhere. And I think that's what's happened with Varane. So I don't think it's necessarily not true. Maybe in a dream world, in his ideal world, Varane was thinking he'll stay at Real Madrid. I mean, they are one of the biggest clubs in the world, but obviously that money is not there for him, and it's made him want a new challenge. So I'm not concerned about Rafael Varane to Manchester United this morning any more than I was positive last night. I'm still positive that this deal will happen. Things can change. Of course they can change. It's a very changeable world, especially around this transfer. He's going to have to speak to Ancelotti at some point. He's still on holiday. This, to me, is the window for United. Has this point been considered? All the fuss around PSG and Pogba is just Raiola trying to accelerate United, giving them a fruitful contract, says Akshay. Maybe. Greetings from down under. Love the show. I think the Pogba problem is all the Glazers and upper management's treatment of contracts. No matter what they do this window, Glazers out, says George. Morning, mate. If these bankers were smart, they would cash in on Fred this summer based on the tournament he's had. We just might get back our 50 million for him, thought, says AJ Singh. Well, you know, now's the time to cash in on Lingard as well. You know, his stock has never been so high, but we won't do it because we'll think about, contracts. Morning, Mark. I will only believe it when he's holding up the shirt. Please don't leave for Sky, says Mikael Roach. There's not much chance of that. Hey, Mark, what do you think about Fred's performance for Brazil in the Copa America? Do you think he has the potential to show up in a United shirt, says Tim Thomas? If you'd asked me that a year ago, Tim, I would have said yes. And I want to talk about Rashford in a few minutes as well. But, last season I wasn't overly impressed with Fred. Maybe Fred's as constricted as McTominay is. I always give McTominay the benefit of the doubt. I don't rate McTominay that much. I still don't know what he's meant to be as a footballer. I don't get what he is. I don't think he's particularly good at passing, tackling. He's got a good shot on him. He's very energetic. But, there's 30 players like that in the Championship. So, what is it about McTominay? But I always give him the benefit of the doubt because I think he's playing out of position. Well, can you not say that about Fred? If we're giving McTominay the benefit of the doubt, can we not give Fred the benefit of the doubt? I just think that as a midfield two sat there, they don't work. But maybe if they're given a bit more freedom, they could do as box-to-box players, like Michael Jones says. But let me just wrap up about Varane then. I think that with Varane, this looks like it's going to be a deal that's going to run for a while. And we've got to remember that United do take on average about 6 weeks to do a deal. We've been working on this Varane thing publicly for a week or two? So there's probably a few more weeks to run on this. But if I was United, I would be trying to get this done very, very quickly, because as soon as Rafael Varane goes back training with Real Madrid, that's when you start to get to the point where he might go, I quite like the buzz around this. I feel optimistic. Maybe we'll win the league again. Maybe we'll win the Champions League under Ancelotti. So that's what worries me about that. But of course, it might not be easy for United to rush this deal through, because Madrid might be like, well, let's do what they did to us with De Gea. Let's take it all the way to the end of August. Let's mess up with a fax machine. So, Real Madrid have got some power in this position. What I'm hoping for and what I'm hearing is there is a lot of positivity around this deal, because Real Madrid need to raise funds, and they know with Varane that he wants to go. They know that they don't want to pay him the wages that he wants. and they know if they sell him now, they can get some money. But what I've also been told is that Madrid want as much money as possible, as much as 50 million quid. But he's got 1 year left on his deal. I think United are right to hold out for like 40 million. So there might be a deal, but then you've got to negotiate. So at the moment, this moment in time, I'm not massively concerned about Varane. And I think there are a lot of people out there scaremongering now, saying, "Oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen." We might get to that point. We might get to a point where it doesn't happen. But at the moment, I would say don't be negative about Varane to United. I think, and that story from Marca this morning saying that Madrid have given the green light for him to leave. I still think that that's where we're at with this. Varane is bluffing. It's not even a good bluff. Nobody in the footballing world believing him wanting to play under Oli, says Andre. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think it can still happen. So that's your updates on Camavinga and Varane. Camavinga, Romano basically hinting that there's going to be an official bid going in soon. We are excited about Varane, who is out of the Euros. Camavinga is not in the 25-man squad, and Sancho is not even in the first 15 for England, says Manula. But you know what? I've got to just say this very quickly. Why are people living off international tournaments? I've done this for about 6 years, and I've done watch-alongs for World Cups and Euros on That's Football. And one thing I always say is, don't get hyped off international football. It's not club football. If that England team wins the Euros on Sunday, or that Italian team wins the Euros on Sunday, that team would get beaten by most of the top 8 in the Premier League, because the Premier League teams are playing together all the time, they're training together all the time, and they're quicker, and their tempo and their tactics are much better. International football is a bubble. You get a group of players who don't play with each other together for a few weeks, and you basically chuck them together and see what's going to happen. It's impossible to get fluidity like you do in the Premier League. So to judge players that do well in international football is silly. I mean, I've had people saying to me, "Oh, look at Harry Maguire, he's the best centre-back in the world." He's had a very, very good tournament, and so's Luke Shaw. And we're fortunate that we know they play like that for their club. But it's very difficult to see Fred playing in a final for Brazil and say he's one of the best midfielders in the world when you've seen what he's just done for the last year. So I'm not massively bothered that Varane's out of the Euros. I thought he played well for France in the Euros. Sancho doesn't get picked for England. Oh, he must be shit then. Camavinga's not in the French squad. Well, he's 18 and the French squad's pretty bloody good. Upamecano wasn't in the French squad. So I don't live my life off international football. Mark, I heard the United stand is up for sale from your other videos, says Same Miasi. And there is a video about that, actually, the Goldbridge interview. If you want to check it out, I'm going to share it on the community page. But if you've not seen it, the Goldbridge interview, just type it in. It talks about what Zane's talking about there and a few other things as well. We can't go on next season with McFred in midfield, says Kieran Miller. Just a bit more transfer news for you. Apparently Tahith Chong is favourites to go on loan to Birmingham City in the Championship. Brandon Williams still looking like a move to Southampton. They'd be good loan moves. I mean, I think a lot of people have forgotten about Chong. Chong went to... Where did Chong go? He went Werder Bremen, didn't he, at the start of the season? I like Chong. I've always been a big fan of Chong, and I think he's got a... I think he was one of those players that I was quite excited about. He had a bad knee injury, and he had a couple of bad performances when he played for the first team, and now people think he's shit. Do I think he'll end up being a United player? Probably not, but that's a good loan move for him, Birmingham, if he can get that. He went Werder Bremen, then to Club Brugge, but he did start off at Werder Bremen, which I was quite excited about because, you think about people like Sancho have done well in the Bundesliga. But Birmingham City would be a good loan for Tahith Chong if he can play. I think the chances of him ever ending up as a United player are very slim, but that's where you want to be in the Championship. And of course, Brandon Williams to Southampton would be very good if he can get some a bit of game time. Kenneth says Chong's good enough for the bench. He probably is. He's 21 now, says Than. He might be getting on a little bit, but you never know. You never know. It might work. Speaking about Camavinga, Athletic are saying that the Pogba thing will rumble on. I think we know this. I know we've spoken about Paul Pogba a lot. I don't want to talk about Paul Pogba too much this morning, but I think we've been talking about Pogba on this channel for quite a while. That we knew this was all going to happen sort of late July. And we're moving towards that with Pogba now. There is going to be some big news about Paul Pogba, and I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, I think there are 3 options, as we know. He signs a new contract, he leaves this summer, or he runs his contract down. There's 3. If I was breaking them down and 100% is everything, I would say the chances of him signing a new contract are about 20%. The chances of him leaving this summer are probably 30%. and the chances of running his contract down are 50%, and that's 30, 20, 50, that's 100%. So yeah, I'm 50. I think there's still the most likely thing is that he'll run his contract down, but it's not something we can bury our head in the sand about, because if we don't do anything, he runs his contract down. If we do something, he's got to go in the next 6 weeks or sign a new contract in the next 6 weeks. So it will happen. Something's going to happen with Pogba. It's not something that we can just speculate that's going to happen. It will happen. One of those outcomes will happen in the next few weeks. But I think that, he's on holiday at the moment. He will be assessing his options, and he's in total control. Vignesh says, if McTominay and Fred just can't pass, what makes you thinking they can be useful as box-to-box CMs? Well, yeah, you might be onto something there. To be honest, you might be onto something there. Marker have also said the Varan case is still pending at Real Madrid because there's the possibility for him to renew his contract or join another club in the summer. If he decides to leave, Manchester United will be Varan's destination. So yeah, I mean, look, that's where we're at, isn't it, with Varan? I mean, we can dance around the bush as much as we like, but that's where we are with Varan. He's either going to stay at Real Madrid or he's going to come to Manchester United. But for Real Madrid to keep him, they're going to have to spend a lot of money, which they don't really want to do. And I think Real Madrid's issue here is, that they've got no money. And they've got a player in Varan who is a centre-back that they can get 40 million quid for. Or they can decide to give him 14 million a year to stay. And I think Madrid are more swaying towards let's cash in, because they need the money. So I wouldn't be too... At the moment, I'm positive that it's going to happen for Varane, but we'll see. So you're saying number 8 Arsenal could beat Italy, says Manuel. I think I said top... Did I say top 8? Sorry, I meant top 6. Barca can't resign Messi until they clear 220 million from their wage bill. I'm surprised I haven't heard more clubs linked to their players, says Mark Dobby. Well, remember Messi's playing in the Copa America as well, and it's a final. It's their equivalent of the Euros, so Messi will sort his future out after that. Really. Who would you want as a Pogba replacement if he leaves, says Cameron? Well, I want to talk about that in a minute, because what I want to talk about is alternatives to Varan and alternatives for Camavinga if we don't get them. And I suppose we could bring Pogba into that. One of the big things I wanted to talk about this morning is Marcus Rashford. I don't know whether anybody saw it, but there was an interview with the Manchester Evening News from ex-United player Paul Parker. Now, people might know who Paul Parker is, people might not. You've got to be of a certain age. He used to play... Well, he played in Italia 90 for England, talking about England, in the team that got to the semi-final. And he played for Manchester United in the early 90s. And he was a decent right-back. And he's quite vocal. I like the guy. I've met him a couple of times. He's a nice guy, but he's very vocal. He's one of those... he's not like one of these polished Class of 92 members who sit on BT or Sky and, they know what they're saying and they've got their loyalties. Paul Parker's one of those players that I quite like because he's actually quite honest. And basically, well, I don't actually like what he said here, though, can I just say? But look, at least he's honest. He said, I don't buy this Rashford thing. He's not good enough. And the talk of injuries, it's an excuse. Maybe 20 years ago you had to play with injuries. You don't have to play with injuries now. Teams have got full, massive squads. Why is he playing with an injury? There's no excuse to be playing like he is. And what I basically said is, there's no excuse for Rashford to be playing like this. If he's injured, get off the pitch and get yourself fit. And if you're pretending to be injured, why are you not playing well? And I thought it's ridiculously harsh, because I think my stance is that, and look, it's all about opinion. There'll be people in the chat saying, well done, Paul Parker. I know that. But for me, I'll be consistent and say, I think Marcus Rashford is a fantastic footballer who's not been a fantastic footballer for a few months now. He's definitely carrying an injury. He said it himself. Now, whether that's a shoulder injury or an ankle injury, he definitely is. But where I do agree with Paul Parker is that he shouldn't be playing. Like, ultimately, it just comes down to management. If I'm managing Marcus Rashford and he's, look at what Gareth Southgate's done with Rashford. He won't pick him. He's not picking him. He thinks Foden, Grealish, Mount, Sterling, Saka, Sancho, Kane are all better than him. That's the England manager. We're in a final of the Euros and Rashford's got no chance of starting. Absolutely none. He's nowhere near that team. Well, that to me is a big red flag. Marcus Rashford's nowhere near that starting lineup. He's probably not even near the backup positions. But he should be. So why is Rashford nowhere near good enough to start for England? And the reality is because the manager of England has looked at him in training and said he's nowhere near the level. But at Manchester United, Ollie's gone, you're starting, Rashi, you're starting. And I just think that this comes down to the coaches. I think they should have said to Rashford, I know you're one of our best players, but you're not right, and I need you right. But we never did it. And maybe we couldn't do it last season. You know, you think about it last season. If we'd have said to Rashford, take 3 months off to get fit, who were we going to play off the left? Martial was out of form. Cavani was in and out of the team. You know, Pogba was off the left, I suppose. But, you know, Greenwood, I think he's been overplayed by Manchester United. And I think Rashford, I know people will start talking about what he does off the pitch. I don't care whether he's Marcus Rashford, the best player in England, or he's bloody, I don't know, Holding, the centre-back at Arsenal that no one really knows much about. He's got every right to do charity work, Holding at Arsenal. He's got every right to, you know, get on at the government to feed kids and, you know, help educate kids and everything like that. To me, what Rashford does off the pitch is fantastic. He doesn't need to be England's best player as well. The fact that he can be gives him more of a profile. But what he's doing off the pitch really should be parked as separate to what he does on the pitch. Just because he's amazing off the pitch doesn't mean he's going to be amazing on the pitch. That's you know, no correlation to me at all. So what he's doing off the pitch, I don't think impacts what he does on the pitch. What he's doing on the pitch at the moment is, I think, in my opinion, he's playing injured, and I think that that's detrimental to him. But I think the way Southgate's managed him at England is probably how we should have managed him at Manchester United, because the player, and I've played nowhere near the level that Rashford does, but you know, I've played, you know, Saturday, Sunday football for my school teams and stuff like that when I used to play. And I've had injuries and stuff, and I'll just keep quiet because I want to play. I'd imagine that's amplified by 100 when you're someone like Marcus Rashford who's playing for United and England. He is going to want to play. But this is why you have managers, because they make difficult decisions. So I think that criticism of Rashford is a bit unfair, because ultimately he's just a lad who wants to play football. But I also think that, you know, there is some sense of what Paul Parker is saying, not Paul Pogba, bloody hell, we don't want to cause a trouble. What Paul Parker's saying is that, you know, he's just not good enough at the moment. And he isn't good enough at the moment. And I think it's sad that he's basically hung around the England squad because he wants to be part of it, but he's got no chance of starting. And that's not the Marcus Rashford I know, to me. I don't know what everyone thinks, but to me, I think it's sad how he sees it. He's literally, you know, he's a bit like Lewis Hamilton on the, you know, when he's winning a race and, you know, he's 60 seconds ahead of second place and he's on the last lap and he's punctured his tyre and he's limping towards the finishing line, and all the time he's being caught by everybody else. And is he going to get over the line in time, or is he going to just get passed by? And I think what's happened with United is he just about got over the line, but with England it's too much. And now you've got Sancho's car and Saka's car and Sterling's car just whizzing past him, and he just can't catch them now because he's got that punctured tyre. He needs to come into the pits, he needs to get new tyres, a bit of a rest, and get out and race again. But I think for England he's just fallen behind and he's not going to catch those people up. But you know, let's just see what happens with him next season, because he needs a big break. Ian says, what's the hate against Rashford? I don't think there's any hate. I just think, I do actually think that we'd been meaning to talk about it on the Thursday night show, hadn't we? That, you know, Rashford's Euros have been pretty disappointing. If you're a Rashford fan like I am, because he plays for United, I expected Rashford to be pushing for the first team, and he's not been anywhere near it. What I want to see with Rashford is I want to see him get some rest, recuperation, operation if he needs it, and then let's see the real Rashford back. Because I think if he goes into next season carrying injuries again, we'll get a very inconsistent Rashford. And look, even an inconsistent Rashford, like he said himself, I've still scored a lot of goals, I've still created a lot of goals as well, and he has. But at the moment, he's nowhere near the England team, is he? And you worry about him next season. You can win a race with a broken tyre, says R2. That's what I just said. I said, you know, I think with United, he just about got over the line. But now he's trying to do another lap with England, and you can't. Seems like Gareth is actually resting him, maybe, says Joshua. Resting him, yeah, maybe. Just somebody said about Martial staying. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of been lost in everything else we've been talking because of the Varan news coming in. The latest with Anthony Martial is that it'll be very surprising if he's not a Manchester United player next season. So again, that might disappoint people, but there is no expectation that Anthony Martial will leave Manchester United this summer. They certainly wouldn't want to be putting him out on loan. They are open to offers. For most players, they're open to offers, but for Martial, it would take something pretty special. And the belief is that anybody that's interested in Martial would not be interested in his wages of 250k a week. So the expectation is that Martial will be a part of the team next year. And the hope is that, after a difficult year last year, a summer where he's not been part of the French squad and a full summer off, that he'll come back fully fit and fresh. And look, hopefully that happens because, I know people are concerned about Lingard being part of the team, and look, let's wait for that new contract. But in relation to Martial, I'm a big fan of Martial, and he should be fit and firing to go. Cavani's still has been part of the Copa America. We've just spoken about Rashford. Bruno's been part of the Euros. Pogba's been part of the Euros. Sancho's part of the Euros. Greenwood's at a rest, Martial's at a rest. So those two players could be very important for us over the coming weeks and months. Saka is a revelation, the next Sahar for United, says Manalu. He plays for Arsenal. I don't think he'll be coming to United. Alternatives. I just wanted to talk to you about alternatives. So if we don't get Camavinga and we don't get Varan, what are the alternatives? I think it's worthwhile looking at that. And I think it's worthwhile looking at that because, as I've said a few times, there is no reason to be negative about Varan coming to Manchester United. I'm still confident that will happen. I don't buy any of this negativity this morning. Camavinga, I think, is a difficult deal to do, but lots of people want to be positive about that. And look, even Romano said that an official bid is probably coming in, so that's something to be positive about. But Manchester United getting Sancho, Camavinga and Varan and keeping Pogba, I think there's a remote chance of that happening. I can't see it'll happen. Manchester United getting Sancho, Varane, Camavinga and Pogba going, I still think is remote because I don't think we'll get Camavinga and Varane. So at some point, I think we will have to look at alternatives. Now, Camavinga alternatives, bit difficult because are we just going for him because he's young? Are we actually looking for a midfielder, or are we just going for Camavinga because he's a young talent who's available at a cheap price? It might be Camavinga or nobody. Man United might just view Camavinga as an opportunist. Rory Saunders, thanks for the super chat. We might just be looking at Camavinga because it's an opportunist signing. However, if we're looking at Camavinga and if we don't get him, we still want a midfielder. I think the obvious one for me is Bissouma. He's a little bit older. I think he's 6 years older. But he's a similar type of midfielder and he'd be available at a reasonable price. So I think, Bissouma is a possibility for United. Although I don't think we'll get him. I think he is a possibility, as I've said before. Alternatives to Varan is where I start to worry a little bit because we will buy a centre-back. And I believe it will be Varan. At the moment, I'm still positive that it will be Varan. But if it's not Varan because he stays at Real Madrid, then I think you are looking at, Christian Romero at Atalanta. I think that is a player that we are scouting based on what I had that chat with Romano on Monday. I think Pau Torres definitely is a player that we are interested in. And then I'd be a little bit worried about Ben White unless he signs for Arsenal soon. I still think United would be looking at Ben White as well. So there are alternatives there. Koundé, I don't think we're looking at Koundé because I think Sevilla have basically priced themselves out. Yeah, I think they've probably priced themselves out of a deal there because I think they want around 70 million euro, which is 60 million quid. Well, it's a difficult thing to go from Real Madrid will sell us Varane for about 40 million quid to let's get Koundé for 60 million. Whereas I think Pau Torres will probably go for around that as well. I can't see Koundé going to Spurs, Jason or Luke. I cannot see him going there. I'm not a big fan of Pau Torres for lots of reasons, really. But my main issue with Pau Torres is that, as we were talking about last night, I think Maguire and Shaw are the best left-sided centre-back and left-back partnership in the world at the moment. I think Maguire and Shaw's understanding, they've basically got that side on lockdown, and Luke Shaw offensively is amazing. So if you bring Pau Torres in, you're going to have to move Harry Maguire to the right to bring Pau Torres in, and you're going to break up Shaw and Maguire. So I don't want to see that happening. I think that partnership is so good, I don't want to see it happening. We want to fix the right-hand side. Tap Sober from Leverkusen is a good Varane alternative, says Annie Bro. I mean, Botman's another one as well. We will buy a centre-back if we don't get Rafael Varane, but I think it will probably be Pau Torres or maybe a Ben White. But hopefully Arsenal will sign Ben White. I don't think Ben White's a bad player, by the way. Arsenal have been trying to buy a centre-back for years. They buy so many, don't they? I don't think Ben White's a bad centre-back. I just don't want an all-English back five. I think it's a joke. In the modern game, to have an all-English back five is a joke. And people will say, well, we're going to win the Euros. But we're not going to win the Euros with Wan-Bissaka, White, Maguire, Shaw and Henderson, are we? So I don't want to see Ben White at Manchester United. Hi, Mark. And also, I think there's a lot better centre-backs than Ben White. I think Torres is better than Ben White. I think, obviously, Varane's better than Ben White. Koundé's better than Ben White. Koulibaly's better than Ben White. There's quite a few. Hi, Mark. Do you think Sabitzer will be a good deal for United? Heard that he would be around 20 to 25 million as a Zidane. Well, talking about Spurs, I've always thought that Sabitzer would be a prime sort of Spurs signing. But I don't think United will go for Sabitzer. But I think you're right. I've seen a few of you in the chat talking about Sabitzer. He would be a decent player to bring in. Is he quite similar profile to a Van der Beek, though, in the sense that, you know, could you play Sabitzer and Van der Beek together? Is it another player that's just going to, you know, stop Donny getting near the team? So, you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, I think, as I said, it's easy with United to get impatient. And I think some people are being a bit impatient about it. You know, where's the Varan bid? Where's the Camavinga bid? Remember, United are slow. United are traditionally very slow when it comes to transfers. And I think that, you know, it's we're probably going to have to be a little bit patient with it. We might have to be very patient with it. But I also agree that Camavinga, you've got to move fast because PSG and Real Madrid will be interested. Varane, you've got to try and move fast because if he goes back pre-season training with Madrid, that's the club, that's the only threat to us. The only threat with Varane is that he stays at Madrid. So the last thing you want him doing is pre-season training with the new manager, getting ideas about how this is the right place for him. But hopefully we will get some movement on it. But you know, the media at the moment is very focused on England, aren't they? Because this is a massive, massive thing. So I focus on what the Spanish media are saying because Spain are out, and the Spanish media are saying green light to United. He might stay at Madrid, but the feeling is he's going to go to United. So I'll stay positive on that. Look, thanks everyone for watching. Please smash a like on the video. We will be back at 8 o'clock tonight. Pau Torres is another Lindelof, but left-footed to Gotham. We will be back at 8 o'clock tonight, but obviously if anything breaks, we will go live. And if you want to check out my interview, the Goldbridge interview, quite interesting stuff in there. It's all time-stamped on all the things I talk about. I did talk a little bit about the United stand being up for sale, but there is context to it. Also chatting about a few other things as well, about the future, etc. So check it out. It's called the Goldbridge interview. Just type it in, but I'll whack it into the community tab as well of this page. Thanks everyone for watching. It's coming Rome, says Annie Bray. Well, it's coming Rome or it's coming home. One of the two. I'll give you that. Speak to you all in a bit. Take care.